Hi Blender fans and welcome once again to blendertc. In today's tutorial we're going to make a rigid bodied simulation, just one of them loops that goes on forever sort of thing, so let's begin. Into Blender, I prefer the layout window, and what we're going to do is press the X key and delete our cube. Press the 1 key to look from the front, add a mesh, and the mesh we're going to add in is a UV sphere. For our tutorial we're going to need an actual ball, and I'm going to quickly make a ball to use in this tutorial. So what I'm going to do is make a tennis type ball. So what we've got is point select, line select and face select. You need to go into face select, and up here you've got the X-ray, toggle X-ray. I'm just going to toggle X-ray and just select half of our mesh. Pressing the P key, what I'm going to do is actually hit selection just to actually split these two, and then we're going to rotate in the X by 90 because we're going to make that classic tennis ball shape. So just going to select that face and select that face, and then right click to join our two halves back together, because at the minute, as you can see, Control Z to actually undo, they're not together. So join them back together, and if I press tab key we can now look from the middle of our ball. So I'm just going to select this edge, Control and R, and as you can see these are not joined together, so Control and Z to undo that. And what we're going to do is actually select all faces, and what we've got up here is got mesh, and we're going to merge by distance, and what this will do, anything that is overlapping each other will then be joined together. So merge by distance, and as you can see 32 vertices have been removed, so this is now just one object again. Go on face select. What I'm going to do is select that face there, Control and R just to split it up, move my mouse wheel up slightly, and what we're going to do is we've made them two lines there, and what I haven't done, I wasn't on actual face select then, so I'm just going to select those lines there. It's a lot easier if you're not in X-ray anymore, just to select these lines, and I'm just going to extrude along the normals, but I'm going to extrude it inwards like so, just to make that classic ball shape. And then last but not least, we're just going to the spanner or wrench, add a modifier, and we're going to make this a subdivision surface modifier. And as you can see, that's made our classic shade smooth. That's made our classic sort of tennis ball shape, as you can see. Looking at our tennis ball, we're just going to actually add two colours to this, and the first colour is going to be like a greeny colour. I will just call it colour because I haven't really decided on the colour that we want this to be yet. So I'm just going to make it a sort of greeny colour, and if we go into the render mode we'll be able to see the greeny colour that I've made it. Pressing the tab key, as you can see we've still got the actual faces selected. If these are deselected, pressing the Alt key and selecting this line will select the inner faces, and if we Control and plus, we just grow it until it gets too far like that, and then take it back one by Control and minus, and then we'll add another colour, new, and we'll call this white. To assign our colour to this actual trough, we just actually select the white and then select assign like so, and we've got our classic tennis ball shape. Select our ball, G and Z, just to move it up there off screen, and the next thing we're going to add is a tube, or half a tube. So let's add in our tube, and our tube, the best thing we can actually add in is our cylinder. just going to scale it up, scale it too far, scale it down, scale it by the Z until it's about that length, and then I'm just going to move it here just so it's sat on top of this red line like so. If we then actually go into the viewport shading, this just makes it a bit easier to see. What we'll do is actually go into edit mode by pressing the tab key, go into face select and select this face. Pressing the one key, we're going to actually look from the front, and then if we actually press F3 key, what we're going to do is actually use the spin tool, so type in spin, and as you can see it actually appears like so. This actually opens up this other menu, and if we open this other menu we can then actually make this 130. Yeah, I think 130 is about right, and because that line there is on there, what it's doing is actually curling this round the origin point there. So we've got our tube. All we need to do now is open the two ends, so select that by pressing the going on face select and pressing the face, hold the shift down and select the other face, pressing the X key, and we need to delete the faces, and this will make our tube. What I'm now going to do is actually look from the front. Right, I'm not looking from the front. Press Ctrl and 3 to look through the front of our tube, and I'm just going to select this line in the middle by pressing the Alt key, and then we can grow our selection by pressing Ctrl and plus 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 until you get it where you want it. Right, take it back one, X, X, delete faces like so. So we've now made our half a pipe. I'm just going to smooth shade this now, and with the spanner or the wrench I'm going to add a modifier, and it's going to be a solidifier modifier. Take this to the negative because that'll grow it out of the bottom, and I'm just going to take it to 0.05, and I think that's about right for our simulation. Looking from the front, I'm just going to tilt this back slightly by pressing the R key and the Y just to tilt it back slightly. So let's move the ball, G and X, just move it there, and we'll add some of our rigid body simulations to this now. So select the ball, hit the physics properties here, and we're going to add in a rigid body. Our rigid body, what we want to do is make it the closest thing that we've got to the ball, so we're going to make that the sphere, and as you can see we've got an actual sphere that's wrapped around of there, and on this we're going to, we actually press the space bar just to run our simulation. As you can see it runs straight through our tube. Shift and left click. The reason it's running through our tube is this is not yet a rigid body, so add a rigid body, and we're going to make this a passive item. A passive item is something that cannot be travelled through, but we've got convex hull which will do the actual outside of our parameters here, so it wouldn't really work too well. So what we're going to do is change that to mesh, which then uses the skin of our tube as its guide. So press the space bar, and as you can see it sort of caught it then. I don't know whether it's our ball that's too big and it's got stuck, or the friction's too great, but what we'll try doing first is we're going to actually just shrink our ball down slightly. So scale our ball down slightly. Whenever you actually scale something or change the size of it, it's always a good idea to put Ctrl and A, and this actually normalizes the rotation and scale. And if we run it again, yep, it was just getting stuck in the end because the actual ball was too big. So there we are. So we've got our tube and our ball, What we need to do to make it a bit more interesting now is to actually add another one of these tubes. So back to the beginning, Shift and D just to duplicate our tube, and we're going to rotate in the Z, which is along the purple line, by 180. Hold on a minute. I hadn't duplicated my tube, so Control Z just to undo it. Shift and D to duplicate. Press the anti-key to fix. Rotate in the Z by 180. That's much better. And G and X just to move it in the X direction. G and Z to move it down. And let's just try running our simulation again. Yep, I think that's quite good. So all we've got to do now is actually set up our scene. So looking through the camera, as you can see, that's very interesting, but it doesn't really show us a lot. So press the N key, and we're going to go on view and the camera, and just back out slightly with our mouse wheel, rotate it till it's in an interesting position, like so. And if we add a bit of colour to this, as you can see, that's very, very dull. So let's start adding some light to our scene just to make things look a bit better. I think that camera angle's about right for our animation, although it is a bit dull. I'm just going to lock it in there, and we're going to actually set up some of our lighting. So add in a light. So stop our animation first. Add in a light, and I'm going to add in an area light and just scale this up like so. Move it off the camera, and I'm just going to make it a hell of a lot brighter, maybe 2000 or 3000. And these two troughs, I'm just going to add a colour to these. I'm going to make them a blue colour. Add a metallic to it. Take the roughness down so it's a bit more shinier. Take the roughness right down. Take our metallic up, and I'll just call that blue. BLU, blue. And I'll select that and add the other colour, or add the colour blue to the other one, just like so. Looking through our camera, as you can see, our animation still looks a little bit boring, so I'm going to add in another light. No, I'm not going to add in a light. First of all, I'm going to look through the front, and I'm going to add in a plane. Rotate our plane, rotate in the X direction by 90 degrees, and G and Y, just to move it to the back. Scale it up, and just something for our shadows to be caught on at the back, like so. I'm just going to scale that in the X direction so it covers everything. Make the light up here a little bit duller. Move that back a bit. G and Y. And that a little bit duller, maybe 2000. And I'm just going to add something to cast some shadows to make it look a bit more special. Add in a light, and then just add in a point light. And I'm just going to move it G and Y, make it a lot brighter. G and Z, G and X. As you can see, we've got this light here is still a bit bright, so make it 1000. Get rid of that light up there. And what we're doing is actually making this more interesting by moving our light just to cast some strange and weird shadows. Just gives our scene a bit more depth. And I think all we need to do now is just maybe go into edit mode, and I'm just going to Control and R. Just move this down. G and X just to move, sorry. G and Y just to move it over. And I'm just going to bevel this. Control Z. Control and B just to bevel this. Add a bevel. This just gives you a little bit more control because it fetches up this menu. Just to make our scene complete. And I'm just going to add in a background to our scene. I think I'm just going to make it nice and shiny. Shade smooth it. Take the roughness down. Just to add a little bit more interest. Let's do a little bit more brightness. Just move some things around until I've got my lights just where I want them. Add another light in just to make a bit more interest. Point. I'm just going to adjust the camera angle. Looking through the camera. Just until I get the actual view I want. I'm just going to add another light. See, sometimes you just can't have enough lights, and other times it's just too much of a good thing. Sometimes just highlight things. I don't want this one to cast shadows, so I'm going to take the shadow casting off and just reduce. Just to add a bit of realism and interest to our scene. And I'm just going to move this more central. And I think I'm quite happy with this scene. I'm just going to actually muck about with the colours just until I get something that I like the look of. That I think will do. So all we've got to do now is just render this out. So I'm just going to save this out because it's been crashing quite a lot just lately. So File, Save As, Tennis 1. Save As. And all I'm going to do is now render this out. So go on here, select where I'm going to actually put it. So that's D, Blender Work, and 0, Tennis, wherever that is. I'll pick you out, right, tennis ball. Open it up, and I'm just going to call this render 1. Render 1, accept. And the last thing I'm going to do is change this from ping to FFmpeg, and then just render it out. First of all, I'm going to show you the results in Eevee, and then secondly, I'll show you the results in Cycles. Quite fun to actually play around with rigid body physics. Hope you enjoyed these tutorials. Please subscribe to blendertc, and if you like my content, press like and don't forget to subscribe. That way you'll see anything new that I put out there.